episode 3 of my podcast, Rise and Resilience. Today's guest is Michelle Keegan from Douglas Elliman. She is ranked number 2 on Long Island in transactions and number 12 by GCI. She's also in the top 5% of the company. Not only is she a rock star agent, but she is a mother of 4 and someone who I've known for a really long time. Tell everyone how you got started in real estate.
So, like I said, I have 4 kids. And anybody who knows me knows, I have been with my husband since we're 17. All I ever wanted from the time I was a little girl was to get married and be a mom. You've read it before, but, growing up in the 80s and the 90s, that's when it really started to become women, what are you going to be? You're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a teacher. And here I was, people would say to me, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I would try to make things up because I felt like saying I want to be a mom and I want to be a wife was unacceptable. So my husband and I have been together since high school, and thankfully when I said, I want to raise my kids, I want to be home, there's only a certain amount of time that you have them. And he totally agreed. So we actually got married very young. We graduated high school. He went into the Marine Corps. Shocking, that's what my son is doing. He went into the Marine Corps. A year later, we got engaged, and a year later, we got married. So we were literally 20 years old. My husband was 20 for 2 days when we got married. So we lived in Virginia. We lived in North Carolina. I have my license for massage therapy, but being a massage therapist on a Marine Corps base is, not really so great. So I was a waitress, and I, did everything that I could to make money. And coming from New York and living in Virginia and North Carolina, they thought I was like a superstar. They were like, how do you, I could do the entire restaurant by myself, and they would look at me in awe. I'm like, we move. You guys don't really move too quickly. And then we came home to New York, and life is really, it's very different. And then I had Brian, my first. And I stayed home, and I still always did a little, some homework, or I waitressed, or, whatever it was, to not really take time from my kids, but to kind of help. Because, when you're 23 years old and you have a baby, and our parents were young, they were still in their careers and working. So there was nobody to say, I'll watch your kid while you go to work. And the truth is I didn't want that anyway. We were willing to make the sacrifices for me to stay home. And we did sacrifice. And then, 3 years later, I had Matthew. Not even 15 months later, I had Delaney. And then 3 years later, Thomas came. So I was mom, and that's all I knew. And that's all I cared. It was fine. I never felt like something was missing, although I did have guilt. My husband, he's a Suffolk County detective, and he still, at the time, he wasn't a detective, he was a new cop. When we first had Brian, he was actually NYPD, and then thankfully he got onto Suffolk, but he still had to work a second job to make ends meet. We live on Long Island. We had a mortgage. We had 2 car payments. We had to feed our children. We got together at 17 years old. We were not 30 who had careers and had money in the bank. I really think that combined, we probably have $500, going for us. We were in high school. So there were times where it was, stay-at-home moms definitely don't get the recognition that they deserve.
No, they don't.
When you stay home with your children, people don't think you're not working, so you don't need a break. When really it's 24/7 of, I need a snack, I have to go to the bathroom, I peed my pants, it's nonstop. So And I would go back to it in a second. But still, there were times where if my husband was on nights, he would work a side job from 7 o'clock in the morning. Let's say his shift was 3 to 11 or 4 to 12. He would leave at 7 o'clock in the morning. He would work until, let's say, 3 o'clock, where he had to be at work at 4. And he would work until 12. And if they made an arrest or whatever, he's coming home at 2, 3 in the morning to start it all over again. So it was really hard on him and hard on me because, again, I had guilt. Like, should I be going to work? Should I have somebody watch my kids? Like, what, it would be easier if maybe I made some extra money and he didn't have to kill himself the way that he is. So now you fast forward and my youngest is going to kindergarten. Well, who am I now? I'm a mom. My children are now out of the house 8 to 9 hours a day. There's only so much cleaning and shopping that somebody can do. So I was talking to my cousin Nicole, who is also in the business, and I'm like, and I remember the conversation so clearly, and I always give her the credit because she gave me the push. And I said, who am I? Like, and she said, Michelle, since we were in high school, you've always been interested in real estate. Get your license. I'm like, get my license? Like, how am I going to manage to go to school? At the time, I think it was like 9 days straight. So if you started on a Wednesday, it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. No weekends off, you went straight through from 9 to 5. How am I doing that? My husband works. There's nobody who, takes care of my kids. So I said, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? I try and it doesn't work out. So I started. I managed to get the kids off to school, fly to the school, do what I had to do, and come home. Of course, Michelle Keegan luck, my son Matthew was in, I think, 4th grade at the time. And, we're athletes. And he was in the county and state championship for wrestling.
Wow.
And I said, oh my God, I have not raised these kids to miss something like that. And I ended up missing 1 day of school, which had me in complete panic mode because when it comes to school and stuff like that, my confidence, I'm going to fail. I'm never going to pass the test. But thankfully, I said, I'm going to try it. And I did it. And I hit the ground running. The reason why I didn't do it sooner is, yes, because Thomas, I wanted to wait for him to get to kindergarten. But I also needed to make sure that, not that he was out of the house all day, but that if I needed to go on an appointment or I was running late, that one of my other children were old enough and they were responsible enough to be able to take care of him.
That makes sense.
Right. So I did that. So he's in 8th grade now. So I've had my license
8 years.
for 8 years.
Do you remember like your first deal? Or like your first year?
Yes. So I had gone, when I think back to it, I'm like, oh my God, those clients of mine, I know so much more now, although sometimes I feel like I know nothing. Within 6 months, not even, of having my license, I had 6 deals in contract.
That's incredible.
Incredible because I knew nothing.
Right.
But I was with a small mom and pop shop. And so they really I got the business because I have a very wonderful sphere of influence. I have people who support me in a way that I'll always be thankful for. People wish that they had the support system, friends, family, past clients. So I had these 6 deals, and I'll never forget making that money and feeling like I was a rock star. Oh my God, this extra money was so exciting. But when I think back to those 6 deals, I didn't know what I was doing. Because again, I was with a small mom and pop shop, so they really kind of did everything. So when I switched over to Douglas Elliman, I was like, oh my odd. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I did 10 months there, and then I switched over to DE, which I can't believe was 7 years ago.
What made you make the move to DE?
So when I was with this small company, there were two owners. They were lovely. They were very good to me. But I noticed that I was new in the business, and I was like their number one person. Like, I was bringing in, like, I was doing almost as much business as people who have been in the office, you know, in the business for years. So I would go into the office and there was like nobody there, but it wasn't that, because I don't need like people sitting with me.
No,
Like,
you don't.
no, I don't need that. But I noticed that the one owner, she was getting involved in another business. And I was like, And then she started to kind of poach me for this other business. And like, really, I felt good about it, that she thought I was good enough at what I was doing here in a sales position to want to take me with her into this other.
What was the other business?
It was like it was like a finance company.
Okay.
I don't really know, where she went with it. If I know her, she's probably very successful. But it was, as much as I felt good that she wanted to take me, I was a little disheartened by, I waited so long to do this, and I was so passionate about real estate, and now she was trying to pull me in another direction, so kind of putting a negative tone on real estate. Like, do you really want to, like the other business there was residual income, like you get a client, you start a portfolio, and there was a residual income. And she would say, but, real estate, you don't get that. I disagree with that. Yes, there's not residual income where every time you pay an electric bill, like, I'm getting some money from it. But there is residual income, and this past year was proof that, I guess maybe not by definition it's residual income, but most of my business, 90-something% of those 63 transactions that I did were referrals. That's residual income. I don't have to, I don't want to say I don't have to, because I don't want to take for granted that because you call me and you're my friend that you're going to hire me. But I don't have to kill myself on Zillow and answer these calls and sell myself, and then knowing that possibly they're going to call somebody else. These referrals are coming from people who have worked with me, or even if it is a family member. I probably have sold 15 houses for my own family. So as far as I'm concerned, real estate, if you keep your nose clean and you do the right thing by not only your client, but by other agents, you're going to succeed. You're going to succeed. Treat people, I've changed this. I don't treat people the way I want to be treated. When your children are older and you see they are getting to the ages where they're getting ready to go out into the world and be an officer in the service, or head to Binghamton, or who knows where my daughter is going to end up next year. Before I respond, and even in text, if you could see how many times I respond to a text message and I read it back and I'm like, and I'll change a word, because I treat people the way I hope that you would treat my children, because they mean more to me than I mean to me. So if I don't like the way I'm responding, because if somebody was talking to one of my kids and that would really make me angry, I'm going to change my words. And I'm going to be 45 this month. I have done a lot of soul searching in the last couple of years, and how to react to people and treat people. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. I am Greek and Italian, and I have a terrible attitude problem.
Mm.
And I really, when you work with people and the public, you have to kind of tone that down.
Right.
So, but I don't know what everybody does. I don't care what everybody does. I've never been the person to chase the dollar or chase you. I don't care about being better than you. The only thing I care about is being better than me,
Mm-hmm.
than who I was, and setting an example for my children. So I tried really hard to, like, when everything was going on, to really try to make time. And you know, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you do this every day. People get into this business and they'll say to me all the time, I'm thinking about becoming a real estate agent, and I was guilty of this. I'm thinking of becoming a real estate agent because I want to make my own schedule. Nobody told me it couldn't be any more opposite. You don't make your own schedule at all.
Mm.
You are a slave to everybody's schedule because the loyalty factor here isn't really there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to see a house on a Sunday at 2 o'clock or on a Friday at 7 o'clock, and I tell you I can't do it, but Andrea can, chances are, especially in this environment, they're going to call you, and that's what's going to happen. So, you know, I tried to, like, squeeze everything in that I could and have Sunday where I could spend time with the kids. And, you know, my son is, I get like a little crazy when I talk about this, but in 6 weeks he graduates college.
Mm-hmm.
6 weeks from today, and he's going to the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for 4.5 years, he's going. So I really tried to take the time to spend it with not just him. I mean, listen, he's 21 years old. He doesn't want his mommy, but, you know, go on the boat or do whatever and, you know, try to spend the time, which is why I didn't really hate COVID.
Mm.
As much as I hated what was going on,
Yeah.
it gave me time with my family that I'll never get back again.
Mm-hmm.
So I get this text message and I look and I'm like, number 2? Like, how does that happen? Like, to me, this is crazy. Like, even for you to say, do you want to come on my podcast? Of course, but why? Like, as far as I'm concerned, like, who am I that somebody really cares about my story and what I have to say? So when I saw, you know, again, coming off of that week and then having this weekend, that was just one negative thing after another. Like, when Monday came, I was like, what am I doing? Well, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, just like in everything else in life, it's like, you know, you're on this roller coaster. And then, you know, it just, I said, I need to stop being a crybaby. And I need to, you know, put my big girl panties on and figure it out. And it's been a crazy week and, you know.
So you had no idea that you were number 2? Like,
No.
like no hints, nothing?
No. And yet Brian Jada will usually, like, you know, again, I knew I had a great year.
Right.
But I don't know what is a great year. Like, I didn't even know how many deals I did. I didn't know what my GCI is. Like, I joke around with one of our friends and we always say, like, what is GCI anyway? You know, like, what is that? So again, for myself, I knew it was great. I knew I had a great year. But where did I place in these big, as far as I'm concerned, legends in the industry?
Absolutely,
You know?
yeah.
So, no, I had no idea.
That's crazy.
No.
What is GCI for people listening that don't know?
I just told you,
Gross-
I really don't know.
It's gross commission income.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, and I don't really know. It's
Right.
terrible. And, you know, Stephanie, we joke about it all the time because, again, I'm not one to say, although I do feel a little bit of pressure now, like, I need my GCI to be here. I need to do this many deals. I can't put that pressure on myself because I know I'm going to do the best that I can no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And if that means next year I'm number 20 and my GCI is half of what it was, my ego's going to have to get over it. And I know that that's all I was capable of doing. I'm a mother of 4. I'm a wife. I run a household. Like, there's only so much pressure that I can put on myself without sending me to, you know, the white jacket in the padded room. Like I can't, there's so, and I always joke around with people. I love, I love the new agents who come in, the young ones, and they're always so respectful to me, and I try to give them the same respect. But I always joke around and I say, if this was bowling, in bowling people get a handicap. If this was bowling and I got a handicap for every kid that I had and that I'm actually married, I would probably be like, my GCI would be, 50 million.
Right.
But, just trying to balance life and work, and you get it because you're in the same industry.
Right.
It's hard.
It is hard. And so how do you balance, like, this business is technically 24/7. It takes over your life. Is there a certain time where you put the phone down or you shut your phone off, or it's just nonstop?
No, and I don't, and that's really a problem.
It is a problem. Because
we have to set boundaries. I worked with an agent. She was lovely. And she said to me, from 7 at night to 9 in the morning, she shuts her phone down. What do you mean you shut your phone down? So she said, Michelle, there's nothing going on from 7 o'clock at night to 9 o'clock in the morning that I have to take care of at that time. And I thought to myself, I envied that. But I know what it's like to want an answer. And you get that pit in your stomach, waiting for somebody to respond to you. So it's my fault that no, I don't shut my phone down. I will turn my ringer off because I probably would have been divorced and my kids probably would have moved out because the noise, the dinging that goes on all day. So if we're having dinner or we're watching, which doesn't really happen, watch TV, or if I go to sleep, I turn my ringer off. And it doesn't make any noise and it doesn't light up and it doesn't do anything. So I always tell my clients, text me whenever. You're not going to disturb me. If something, God forbid, my kids weren't home and they would call my husband because his phone is on. But no, I think we set the boundary. So if you text me at 6 o'clock in the morning and I respond to you, I gave you permission to text me at 6 o'clock in the morning. If you text me at midnight and I respond to you, I gave you permission now. So then you don't know, how do you then, because then if you don't respond, now they're worried and they think there's an issue.
Right.
So to answer that question, no. It is 24/7. Unless I'm doing this, I'm with somebody or whatever, I will always really try to respond, it is draining, and I do envy the agent who she does business.
Yeah.
It's just not my personality to make somebody wait if they don't have to.
Right.
If I can answer the question, if I can ease their mind at that moment, I'll do it.
Yeah. Even for me, I'm on the other side of it, so I'm getting nonstop calls, texts for photos, and a lot of agents, they think that the world revolves around them.
Yes.
And they'll call 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30, and I'm just waking up, and I'm like, your photography, I can get back to you in an hour.
Yeah.
I need to know. It's a lot, and right now it's busy season, so I get it. Some of them are ruthless. They'll call you 10 o'clock at night. They'll text you.
Or ask you if you forgot about me.
And that's the thing. I'm between driving, taking the photos. I'm trying to answer, trying to schedule everybody out. But you know what? At the end of the day, we love it. We love what we do. So we wouldn't be able to work so hard if it wasn't our passion.
Right.
So it's that. It's a blessing, but it's also a curse.
Yeah. Well, that's what I always say about real estate. The best thing about real estate is that you can work anywhere. Mm-hmm. The worst thing about real estate is you can work anywhere. Yeah. You're on the beach, you're at the pool, you're in bed, it doesn't matter. And now technology, as great as it is, we really kind of screwed ourselves.
We did.
We're never disconnected. Never. And how do we feel when our phone bugs out and we're like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. How are we, I need to, respond, or I need to get this availability right now. We've made ourselves we did this.
We did.
We created this. Just like in the market that we're in now. The buyers created this.
Right.
We want to blame the sellers for being greedy, but it's the buyers who have made these offers and terms.
Mm-hmm.
If all the buyers just were, this is what the house is worth, this is what we're offering, this is how it goes, then the sellers can't be crazy. Either they're going to accept it for what it is, or they're not going to sell their house.
Right.
So we like to, blame everybody else, but really when we look at it, we created the technology issue. The buyers created this crazy frenzy that's going on because they're the ones who have put forth these terms. So why wouldn't the buyers decide, well, okay, you want to give me $50,000 over the asking price? Perfect.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's crazy.
It's really crazy.
So I want to go back to what you said, soul searching. So like, what does that mean? Like, what have you? So we can get super deep because we've experienced similar paths in terms of, dealing with a family member who suffers with addiction, right?
Yeah.
And I think that changes you to like the soul, and I experience that because we look at things so different. And
obviously we almost were dealing with the same person, but different from it. No, the same.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of your mother.
Oh.
So we are the same.
Yeah, we are the same.
Right.
Yeah.
In a mother sibling,
right.
It's
a sibling.
Different. Right.
So we are the sibling who watches that person.
Yes.
And feels all that.
Yes.
And that changes us.
Yes. And so soul searching. And right, you can understand that aspect of it big time.
Mm.
Now imagine having your kids also watching this.
Mm.
And this is on a different level because your brother and my son were the same age.
Mm.
And they connected because of that.
Right.
Because your brother felt comfortable to talk to my son, and my son felt comfortable talking to somebody who actually gets it.
Right.
Where for my son, he was watching his grandparents. And for me, I'm watching my parents. So when I talk about soul searching and dealing with somebody like that, I really try to be compassionate to people and to put myself in their shoes, because we're so quick to say, why are they doing that? Or why are you enabling? And why are you this? And why are you that? And I think, I was that person at one time, like, you shouldn't be doing that, or it should be happening this way. But that's not, there is no book on how to live life. And we get these wrenches thrown into our lives. And if we can't be, open-minded and understand that, like, you put yourself in her position, or you put yourself in his position, or you put yourself in their parents' position, like, what would I think I would do if I was there? But then if you're really faced with it, it's different.
It is different.
It's different. And I have experienced the last 10 years what we have gone through, and I think she's okay with me talking about it. It's not something that's embarrassing. Some people argue, they believe it's a disease, they don't believe it's a disease. Whatever it is, it is.
It is.
We have it,
yeah.
We deal with it.
Yeah.
But I've even had conversations where I've never done a drug in my life. In my life. 2 of my best friends, never either, which I always thought was kind of weird. So for me to understand that, although I do have an addictive personality.
It's in us.
So when I was a kid, I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm not going to do this, because I was afraid that I would like it so much that I would be that person in rehab, or I would be that person in detox. And I'd call it smart enough or witty enough or whatever. I just never did. So, I've been in positions with my sister where I would say to her, I would say something, and then I could see how she was looking at me, and I would say, what's the matter? Like, I know, I don't get it. I don't get it because I'm not an addict, because I have a perfect life, because I have a perfect husband and I have perfect kids and I have, everything is so perfect. I don't understand what it's like to be you. But I do understand because I took the time, probably more than most people, to learn about it and understand and realize, like, nobody wants this.
Mm-mm.
And if there's anything good that could come out of it, and it's very selfish to say, is that I hope that my kids, my nephews, my nieces see what we've been through and say to themselves, I never want to be there and I don't want to put my parents through that. But I'm also smart enough to realize it doesn't discriminate.
No, it doesn't.
I don't care who you are. Look at your family.
Yeah.
I mean, from the outside, it was perfect.
Yeah.
White picket fence, everything's great.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
They make one bad mistake, and that could be the end of it.
Yeah.
So I always say, like, you never know. Don't spit in the wind.
Yeah.
So as far as, again, back to soul searching, like, I really try to put myself in other people's positions. And even if I don't agree with it, again, I am not perfect. I can fight I'm a lover, not a fighter. I am both.
Me too.
I am 100% both. But, fighting and holding grudges, I don't know if you saw my Facebook yesterday, I had a lot go on in my 44th year. Things that I never, ever would have thought would have happened to me personally and professionally. It was, fantastic. But personally, like, I went through things that were so, like, mind-blowing and life-changing. And I work every day at forgiving because, like my cousin Nicole tells me all the time, she said, Michelle, it's not worth it. It's not worth holding on to. It doesn't mean forgiving somebody means that you build this relationship and everything is great and we're going to forget what happened. You can't.
No, you can't.
But you can hopefully start to rebuild, or at least rebuild yourself. Like, rebuild, like, the heaviness in my heart and the, the thoughts, like, am I, like, I felt like I was in a twilight zone half the time. But, I feel like once I got into my 40s, like, things just kind of changed. Like, I really appreciate the things that I have, especially when I see what other people go through. I thank God every single day. And I know I talk about my kids all the time. And if you come in my household, it's crazy, it's hectic. I scream, I curse, I yell. I'm like a psycho. But at the end of the day, like, they are everything to me. And I thank God that I got my wish of being the stay-at-home mom, and I was able to survive the struggle. And I always talk about it because I know there are other people out there like me,
right,
who have that guilt. And if I can be an example to anybody, it's those, even men, it's not just women. There are men who choose to stay home and their wives go to work. It doesn't matter. But if you choose as a couple to have somebody stay home and take care of your children, there is still, like, enjoy it. It doesn't last forever.
It goes quick.
And I'm proof that you can still become successful at 40 years old, or 40 whatever years old, or 35 or 50 or whatever. There's no limit, there's no age to when you can say, you know what, I did my job. That was my job. I succeeded. That, to me, raising my kids and raising 4 successful, respectful humans, to me, means more than any of these awards ever. So
if someone is a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad and they're listening right now, what's, like, the first piece of advice you would give them?
Enjoy it.
Like, confidence-wise, like, you know, your kids are off to school and now you're doubting yourself. Can I join the workforce? Can I do this? Can I be that entrepreneur I've always wanted to be? What would you tell them?
You can.
Yeah.
I never in my life thought that I would be here. It does not come easy, and you have to put the work, but you also have to have a support system.
Right.
So I say, I'll say it forever. Enjoy the time that you have. Even if, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're a stay-at-home mom, you do nothing. You know, go to school, get a career, do whatever, but enjoy what you have, because you can never turn around. I can never say to my son, Brian, I wish you were 2 years old again. But I can say, I wish that I was a doctor. And guess what? I could go start college and I could do it.
Right.
I might be 90 when I'm done, but you can do it. Time is too precious. And I know it's like so cliche, like, you know, what do they always say? Like, you know, you blink and it's the truth. I feel like, I remember, what was the saying that somebody said to me? Far away. Like, you always feel like it's so far away. Like when you have your first baby and you feel terrible, you're tired, your baby's screaming, your boobs are killing you, you feel disgusting, and you see a bus pull up and the kids get on the school bus. And you think to yourself, oh my God, like that feels like it's so far away. Mm. And then next thing you know, you're at central, you know, school signing your kid up for kindergarten. And you're like, how did that happen? And then you put your kid on the kindergarten bus and you see the high school kids walking home from school and you think to yourself, oh my God, like that is so far away. And then here we are. My kid is getting in the car and driving. Far away is not what we think. It's right there. So enjoy the time that you have, because once you hit far away, you can't go back. There is no, I keep trying. There's no rewind button. And I would, in a second, like my son is graduating in 6 weeks. I remember when we dropped him off to Maritime, and they do like this 10-week boot camp. He hates when I call it boot camp.
I remember.
Oh my God. And I remember I came home, my kids sobbing in the back seat, his girlfriend crying, you know, and I remember coming home and I sat in the backyard and everybody was gone and I cried like somebody died. And I was like, oh my God, how did I get here? My husband and I just graduated high school last year. How did I just drop my kid off to college? And now, you know, COVID was almost like, I feel like it was like a non-existent year. Like even when I'm talking about things and I'll be like, oh, they sold their house last year. Oh no, it was a year and a half ago. Because I feel like that time almost didn't exist. Mm-hmm. I feel like I shouldn't be turning 45. I should be turning 44 again. And now I'm like, wow, like he's done. He's done. When he got into this Marine Corps program, I was like, oh, he's got time. Like, then all of a sudden he became a Marine, and he's, you know, they call him an officer candidate. So he's technically a Marine. Mm-hmm. He's just not commissioned because you have to get your degree and then you become commissioned. And I'm like, but my husband and I were just living in Virginia. He was this little dweeby Marine, and now my son is so far away, is not far away. So enjoy it. It's stressful. I can't tell you how stressful it was sometimes. I remember doing bills and being like, oh my God. So my husband's going to get paid in 2 weeks and I have $300 in my account. $300. I could go to 7-Eleven right now and spend $300 on Slurpees and, you know.
Right.
So I remember that stress. That I don't miss. And, you know, when we would say like, oh my God, there's $300, there wasn't like that account that we didn't want to touch. Like That's
That
what
was it.
we had.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe we had, I always say 1 or 3 kids because Matthew and Delaney kind of, like, one came and like the other one came like right after. So I don't really know where one began and where the other, you know,
Yeah.
it was like a, you know, he was a baby when she was born. But so that I don't miss. That is not fun.
Mm-hmm.
But the time spent with them is, listen, it was not all sunshine and roses. I mean, I could be a psycho and crazy and feel like because, you know, you're in a house with no other adults. And remember, you don't need help because you don't work. And it's a lot, but hindsight is 20/20.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would never, ever, if they said, Michelle, take this career that you have now and do it at 23 years old. Like, thinking if I started this at 23, I would be retired.
Mm.
But what would I have lost?
Right. All that time.
All that time.
It's not worth it.
Nope.
Definitely
So
not.
I would tell these stay-at-home moms and dads, like, you're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the time is so short that, you know, there's always going to be a job. There's always going to be a career. There's always going to be something. But there's not always going to be little people who are tugging at your legs saying, you know, I need a snack or, you know, wipe my butt or something.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's funny because when I think about having kids, like I'm getting married in August and
Mm-hmm.
we want kids, I can't picture myself ever staying home.
why?
I don't know. From when I was a young girl, it was drilled in my head, you need to be independent. You need to make your own money. You need to do this. You know, my mom, she drilled it in my head. And that is why, like, I literally don't rely on anybody. And I do what I have to do. And so the fact that I would have to, like, pull away from that and, like, sit home with my child, like, that scares me. And it's like, I don't know, it's like that weird thing because I don't want to look back and be like, oh, well, I had this great career, but I don't remember changing my kid's diaper, or
Right.
I had to hire this one, or my in-laws had to come stay. Like, it's scary.
That's where there's going to have to be a balance. You have a career. I didn't have one that I left, although I know many people
Mm-hmm.
who have, you know, decided that, you know what, I have this career, so I know maybe you're not going to have 4 kids, maybe you have 1, maybe you have 2. The truth is that, let's say you have 2 kids, in 7 years, let's say you have the 2 years apart, in 7 years they're off to school. Now you're back to being Andrea. You're back to being, you know, home Monday through Friday. Kids are at school from 8:30 to 3:30 or whatever it is. So it's different when you have something where hopefully you're at a place where you can kind of control your schedule. You know, when you first get into this business, you can't. But you get to a place where I have become very good at managing my clients, managing the time, you know, and just making it work. When you have little tiny ones, might be a little different,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and in a non-COVID environment, you know, listen, there were times that my sister-in-law asked me to watch my niece, or, you know, I had Ellie
Mm-hmm.
and I had to do a showing. And guess what? There I was with the little, you know, my kids, my little people in my world never held me back from doing anything. When they were little, when Brian, Delaney, and Matt, and my nephew is the same age as Matthew, and then my other nephew is the same age, so there were times I would have 5 of them. And if I needed to go to the store, you can bet your butt that I was getting in the car, in my Suburban, with all of these, I have pictures, all of these car seats,
Mm-hmm.
and I would go do what I had to do.
Right.
Or I wouldn't take 5 of them on a showing, but, you know, have the little carrying case and take them on a showing. Obviously, the world is different now. We're lucky we can even go in. So, you know, my kids conformed to me. I didn't conform to them. I didn't race home because it was nap time. I didn't race home because they had to have a certain meal and you know, certain protein and vegetables. And I'm a very fly by the seat of my pants type of girl. Like, this is how I have survived. Many people would not survive me. because they just, if your schedule, like I am not your girl.
Yeah.
I actually had an agent say to me last week, she won a big award too for, I think she was #1 in her office.
Okay.
And she texted me and she said, Michelle, she's like, amazing, I text her congratulating her. And she said to me, she goes, it was unbelievable what you did. We really need to have lunch one day so that you can help me organize my life. I said, I'm sorry, this is Michelle Keegan. Like, my life it's controlled chaos.
Right.
But I was always, because there was always so much going on, that if I actually put it, now I actually do use my calendar because it would be a problem. Yeah. So if I put everything down, this one has to be here, that one has to be there, have this, have that, it wouldn't make sense to me. Like, how am I doing all of this? So visually to see it, it would stress me out more than being like, okay, like I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go. I'm going to, we have 5 minutes. You're going in the shower. We're throwing dinner in or whatever it is. My poor Thomas pretty much lived in my Suburban when he was a baby. Meals, everything. He just, #4, just kind of hung out.
I like what you said. You conformed.
They
conform to
me.
to you.
Yes.
I feel like we live in a world where it's okay to love your kids, but you cannot let them control your life.
No.
You can't say, oh, it's nap time, I gotta run home, or I gotta do this. Listen, you gotta have the best of both worlds, right? And I love that you said that, because it's true. It's like,
I've learned lessons in my life by watching people and wanting to kind of emulate that. I've probably learned bigger lessons in life on watching people and saying, that's exactly not what I want. And I remember being in the Marine Corps. I wasn't physically in the Marine Corps, but, I was kind of. So when Brian was in the Marine Corps and, we had a friend who had a baby. And I remember, we're still in touch, and he's, 20-something years old now. He's a wonderful, man. But I remember the mother, like, if it was nap time, she would be like, all right, I'm going to go lay down with him. And it would be like an hour before she would get and she would rub his nose, and she would rub his face. And I was like, note to self, that is not what I'm going to do. You're going to get in your bed and you're going to take a nap. Because I remember sitting there like, is she ever coming out? And then she'd come out and the baby had fallen asleep. And then 15 minutes later, he was up. And I'm like, oh no, like, you need some downtime. Yeah. So I probably have learned more lessons by watching and not wanting. I mean, it's, everything isn't always perfect, and things happen. And I'm very blessed to have the children that I have. They don't give us problems. They, always conformed, like wherever. We have a big family. My husband has a huge family. I have a huge family. There's always something going on, and I never wanted it to be like, oh, sorry, we can't have dinner because, Brian needs to take a nap, or, Delaney needs to have her cereal, whatever. Right. So, yes, they definitely conform to me. We are crazy, whatever.
How long have we known each other? Because Brian
and Nick... I know
Nick,
exactly.
Do you?
Yes, because Brian and Nick are 22 this year. Mm-hmm. Well,
Nicky just turned 22.
Yeah, he's 22, so Brian will be 22. And I know you guys are all 5 years apart. Mm-hmm. So when Brian and Nicky met, they were either 3 or 4. Okay. So we're going back like 18 years. So you were about 8.
8 or 9.
Yep.
Wow.
I remember trick-or-treating and all of, I have pictures of Brian and Nick, like these little tiny kids.
It's crazy. I remember that house that you lived in. What block was it?
Dorchester. How about I almost bought your house?
Oh, yeah. Yes. When was that?
That was before I had Thomas. So that was probably, Thomas is 13, probably 15 years ago. your parents were thinking about moving down
Yep,
south.
we were supposed to go to North Carolina.
Yes.
And you were gonna buy the house from us?
Yes.
How did I not know?
I remember like everything. I remember the price. I remember trying to figure it out, like how we were gonna work it out. Yeah.
And we didn't move because me, pretty much. Like, I was in 8th grade. Going into high school, my parents were like, listen, we have this beautiful house built in North Carolina. And I gave them the hardest time about it. And I always look back and I wonder, like, what would have been different if it's tough.
It's you can't have that. I always tell people, like, you know, you can't change what happened.
Yeah.
And nothing that you did or didn't do is going to change really the course of how everything went for you guys. And even like in real estate, when we lose a deal or whatever, and I'll say to people, like, looking back at what we didn't do is preventing us from moving forward. So, you know, listen, I remember actually when I was in 8th grade and my parents wanted to move and we were going to move to Bayport. I remember the house so clearly. I made my parents so miserable that they didn't do it. I kicked myself. I'm like, Bayport? Like, who would want to live in Bayport? And now I'm like, but so, you know, that's another thing. Like when in the real estate world, you know, you deal with people who, I want to stay in a certain elementary school. I want to stay, you know, my kids, I don't want to. I moved. My kids stayed in the same elementary school, and guess what happened? A redistrict. So we didn't have control that I wasn't going to this elementary school. I moved, it worked out. I was exactly where I wanted to be. And then, oh, sorry, now you gotta go there.
So they went to Winona?
Thomas did the last 2 years.
Wow.
Yes.
I
was like such a crybaby about it. I'm like, I've been in elementary school for 13 years.
Yeah.
My last 2 years, you're gonna take me out of that school and make me, you know, start over.
Why did they do that?
Because they shut down Gate Lot.
Oh.
So then they shut down a couple of schools. So then everybody shifted.
Okay.
So the kids like in my neighborhood, in your neighborhood, your old neighborhood, they all got shifted to Winona. Yeah.
So my house that I live in, they're Winona now?
Yes.
Damn, I did not know that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I always pass the house. And
I do too. But
and it looks great. The house looks good.
yes, I know the people. Actually, they just had a baby.
Really?
Yeah, they have 4 kids too who live in there.
Oh.
I know.
I love it. Yeah, it really is. And me and Nick always talk about it. We're like, we're gonna buy that house back one day. Like that's our goal.
Do you know that I had somebody call me? You know me, I can talk forever. A couple of years ago, I sold a house for a woman. Her mother had passed away, and she sold the house. She was devastated about it. And a couple months ago, I got a text from her, an email. Hi, Michelle, I know you're going to think this is crazy. You know, this is so-and-so. You sold my mom's house. We had such a great experience with you. My daughter now is old enough where she's getting ready to buy a house. Do you think that they would sell us the house back? I didn't know. Like, I remembered the person who bought it. I remembered things about him, like he was a veteran, you know, like I remembered some things. And then I said, you know what? I went in public record. It doesn't give any phone numbers, but very unique name. Went on Facebook, found him. Sometimes I got big ones, you know? So I said, whatever. What's the worst that can happen? My motto is, if you don't ask, you can't get. So I ask, what's the worst somebody could say? No. So I messaged him. I said, hi, you know, this might sound a little crazy. And I went through the whole scenario. Turns out that the house, when he bought it as an investment. And he said to me, it's so weird that I even saw this message. He goes, I never check Messenger. He goes, but somebody was selling something, I guess, on Facebook. And they had a conversation going, and he saw my message. And he said, I'm really open to it. And had the girl decided that she wasn't going to buy a townhouse, she was going to buy a house, he was going to sell the house back to her.
I love that. So
and now I'm going to get the listing.
Are you?
Well, yeah. Because I said to him, I said, listen, you know, I know this didn't work out. And this wasn't a sales pitch. Like, I wasn't trying to get, I mean, I'm not a cold caller. I'm not a door knocker. I mean, I know people hate that about at me, but it's just not in me.
Yeah.
And I said, but if in the future you ever think about selling this, like, I'd love to help you. And he asked me what I thought. I told him the number, and I'm either going to go there today or tomorrow. It makes sense. The guy paid $230,000 6 years ago, and he probably can get $450,000.
No brainer.
No brainer. Where else are you making $200,000 in 6 years, 5 years?
Wow.
So that's a perfect example of you don't ask, you don't get. I've put many deals together. I'm going to close on one soon where somebody, a parent died, both parents passed away, and the aunt is a real estate agent. And the wife reached out to me and she said, Michelle, you've been so good to us and I would love to give you the listing, but we can't take it from the aunt. I respect that. Mm-hmm. But if you could sell it, it would make us so happy. If I could sell it. I love when people say that. Don't worry about it. You can sell. I know I can sell it, but can I sell it? Do I have a buyer for that specific house? So she told me where it was. She told me how much. And I sold a house to somebody one block over. I text her. Hey, Christina. Have any friends or family that you want to pretty much be your neighbor? She was like, no, not really. I have a couple of people thinking about it. And then she goes, oh, long story short, her best girlfriend is a nurse and she's buying the house. So the thing is that we spoke all night. She's like, you were so good to us. Because I sold her house, sold her father's house, and got them into the house that they wanted, all on contingencies, which doesn't really happen. So as far as they were concerned, I was, a hero to them. Mm-hmm. I don't think I was a hero. I did my job. But it worked. Everything worked out exactly the way they wanted it. And she said, if you can get her the right people for the financing and everything, she's like, I don't even know. Well, guess what? We went there, accepted offer, inspection, and we're probably going to close in 2 or 3 days. So had I not asked, the moral of the story is if you don't ask, you'll never know. Mm-hmm. What's the worst somebody could say? You're out of your mind? I know I'm out of my mind. This is not a secret.
Yeah, I love that. It's being uncomfortable. Like when you put yourself in uncomfortable positions and spots, things happen. Yeah. And I feel like 2 months ago, I had that buyer for your house, but it had that weird road, remember? And they couldn't pull the trigger. But even the way you were explaining things, you were like, well, listen, I do have multiple offers, but if they're, flexible with move-in date, you just think so outside of the box. And I feel like that's why you killed it last year, because you're not cookie cutter.
No.
Here's our offer. Yes, no. We're over $20,000 list price, and we're gonna do an inspection tomorrow. You think outside the box, and that's why you get shit done for your clients. I love that.
That's the one thing I'll say about myself. I will never be the smartest person in the room, but when it comes to problem solving or outside the box thinking, that's what I do. 100%.
Definitely.
If I could teach a class on outside the box thinking, but don't ask me about. I probably shouldn't say this out loud. Don't ask me about paperwork. Don't ask me about certain things. I have it. It's just in my own chaotic way that I have it. Yeah. But it is what it is. Listen, I am who I am. You love me for who I am, or you don't. I can't conform to anybody. This is me. This is my life. This is how I live it. Mm-hmm. And obviously I'm doing something right.
Oh, 100%.
My kids, I'm married 25 years this year. 25 years. High school sweetheart. How's that even happen? I mean, listen, it hasn't always been sunshine and roses, but, for the most part, I think we both equally feel that we are equally as blessed to have each other. There's not one of us, he probably shows it a little more than I do, but there's not one of us who thinks oh, she got the better deal or he got the better deal.
Right.
We've always been each other's number one cheerleader.
Mm-hmm.
He's never told me, you can't do that. And
Right.
I've never said to him from 17 years old, although I do remember telling his sister, he's not going to the Marine Corps. He's gonna stay home. He's not going with me. And then there I was, a couple months later, driving down to North Carolina because I was going to be with him.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, his whole, and that's the other thing about being the stay-at-home mom. Like, I invested in him. Thankfully, it worked out. I mean, sometimes it doesn't work out for people like that. You know, I gave him the clear mind that he didn't have to worry about what was going on at home. He didn't have to worry about, you know, not finishing an arrest or not, you know, going on an interview or not doing something because he had to pick up a kid or he had to go, you know, do whatever because I had to go to work. He was able to build himself, which, I mean, again, listen, I'll never say never. You know, anything can happen tomorrow. But, you know, 25 years of investing in him has helped us create the life that we have. Never said no. Oh, you want to be a boxer? You want to do the Golden Gloves? Okay. You know, you want to go to Scotland and, you know, try out when he was in the Marine Corps? Leave me, go to Scotland and jump out of planes or do these. Okay. And I do the same thing with my kids. I don't ever want them to turn around and say, I didn't do something because of you. My son Brian will tell you that he does wish that he would have enlisted so that he could have gone to Paris Island and then, you know, did whatever. But because of me, he didn't. I'll accept that. Okay. He's still doing what he wants to do. And he's going to be light years ahead of where we were when we were in. It's a different lifestyle.
It is a different lifestyle. So it's funny because when you have, your husband is an insanely driven person.
Insane.
Just like you. So in a household where you guys are raising 4 amazing kids, like your kids are salt of the earth, they're respectful. I love Brian. Brian's my favorite.
He's so good.
And he really is so good. And it's like, it wouldn't have worked out if like one of you were like, yeah, I'm just laid back and I'm just.
I am kind of like that.
But like, you both have that drive.
Right.
Right? And it's like, you understand, like, he understands when you're working crazy hours and maybe you're not home right now.
Right.
But because you did that. Like, he was working those crazy hours. So he understands. Once your mind is set and you're passionate and you're driven, you can understand each other. Yes. And you guys are, like you said, are your number one cheerleaders.
Yes.
Like, if he, like, wasn't a motivated person, he'd be like, why are you working so hard?
I know.
Just relax. Right? It's like...
I mean, trust me, sometimes he's like, I mean, really? I'm like, Brian, what do you want me to do? It's not always going to be like this, especially in this business. You know, you take it where you come from. Where,
you make hay when
it's here.
You make hay when the sun shines. Right. It's true.
And as far as, like, our home and raising our kids, like, we are very real. I don't shelter. There are things that I do feel like I failed a little bit in the sense of I make my kids' beds. I do all their laundry. I cook their meals. I make them lunch. I don't baby them at all. But things like that, I feel like, I know it's terrible to say, like I feel like it's my job, but and then like when Matthew is like throwing just, you know, oh, I took my sweatshirt off, I'm going to put it on the kitchen counter. I'm like, but this is not normal. You're 18. You should realize that even though I picked up after you, that putting your sweatshirt on the counter is not normal. And I'm like, I failed. How are you going to college next year? The other day, I'm like, you're scaring me. Like, I'm supposed to send you to college, and like you just have stuff everywhere. But I pick my battles, and I pick my battles in every aspect of my life. He's an amazing child. He's 102 average. He's athletic. He's loving and caring. He's a slob.
I'll take the slob.
I'll take the slob.
Any day.
I'll take the slob. He always makes sure his mom's okay. Always.
I love that.
Me too. The boys are good. So, that's it.
So for your daughter, how is it for her to be, because I'm the only girl of 2 and she's the only girl of 3, like.
And she only, like, so it was my 2 nephews for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because she is the best of both worlds because she won't take shit from anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can say that.
You can say anything you want.
She can't. I was really trying to tone myself down. She does not. She doesn't give a crap, which is nice because nobody's going to walk all over her. And if you could read, I wish I would have like thought about it. The one text message that went back and forth between her and my husband, and it was about like, you know, boys and like, you know, and she's like, Dad, none of these boys are going to even attempt things like that for me. I am one of 4. I have 3 brothers, and everybody's afraid of you anyway. So she is as rough. She's probably the toughest of them all. She's as rough as can be, but she's girly.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to say when she was little, she is a boy with a different part. And I'll never forget when I found out that I was pregnant with her. And, you know, I was not one of those people who waited until the baby came out. Like, I don't care about that surprise. Like, I just wanted to know.
Yeah.
So I had Brian, I had Matthew, and then, 5 months later, I'm pregnant. And we find out that she's a girl. And I remember being like, oh my God, like, it's a girl. Like, I know boys. Like, there's like a whole bunch of, like, the diaper is different. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I have that part. I should know how to take care of that.
Right.
So,
oh my God.
She's fine. And she's just, you know, she's not dramatic. And sometimes I feel bad for her because my boys are so easy that when there is that little female drama episode, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Meanwhile, I see what other people, like when you have more than one girl in a house and what goes on,
it's insane.
I'm like, we are lucky.
Yeah, you are.
We are lucky.
I want 4 kids, believe it or not. I say that now, I have none. People were like, yeah, I wanted 10 and then I had 1 and I had 2. When I dream of like my family, I think of like having a big family, 4 kids.
Love it.
And I would love to have all boys, but I would love to have at least 1 girl. So it's funny because
it works out well.
Yeah,
okay.
Because being around the boys, it just you're a girl, but you're different. Like I'm not into the drama. Yeah, yeah, not into that. So and it's funny because I feel like I get along better with men than like sometimes it depends.
Girls are a little difficult.
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah. Sometimes it's hard for me to like relate to people's like drama, and I'm like, come on, man.
I know.
I can't.
Yeah, she's like that.
Yeah.
Like when she was a cheerleader, and it was all like cheer girl. I'm like, Delaney, like we need to pull back. We need to. She's like, this doesn't happen at home. Like I can't. I said, all right, let's take a year off.
Yeah.
And we were in lacrosse and volleyball,
Good.
and now
Good.
she's fine. But yeah, it's not easy for her.
Mm.
And then, then you have the boyfriend thing come in. They're 1 year apart. So I've had the conversation with Matthew, and like one day he was like, I see him. He's like thinking. I'm like, what's up? He goes, Mom. He goes, thinking about it. Would I want my friends to date my sister? He goes, obviously they're my friends. I like them. They're good people, but so these are the kind of people I guess I would want my sister to date.
Right.
But am I going to be okay with it? He's like, he was like really like stressed out about it. I'm like, man. He goes, what if one day I open the door and Dan's standing there looking for my sister? I'm like, I don't know. He goes, and what would be really weird is that we look alike. I'm like, I know. And she did kind of hang out with a boy that my sons did not approve of.
Mm.
And it was torturous because every time it came up, it was an issue. And of course, my husband is, sides with the boys. And I'm like, we can't, you got to let her figure this out on her own. Thank God she did.
Okay, good.
But, now there's another, interest, and the boys how peaceful in my house because they think he's a good kid.
Oh, good.
Because we're a great family,
Yeah.
you know, the whole thing. I mean, I'm not saying the other kid wasn't.
Right.
He was just not friends with my boys, and you know how kids are with social media and everything. It's just a disaster. But yeah, so she's, you know, I'm happy to have one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one is perfect for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't do well with that.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I want to go into memory lane a little bit about when you had your team. So how was that transition? You woke up one day, you no longer were a team, you were an individual agent. How was that?
So I talked about 2020 being like a real like tough year for me, but it really started at the end of 2019 when, you know, when you're in a partnership with somebody like that, it's like a marriage. And when you decide, or you both decide, or whatever it is, it's like a divorce. And what had happened and what we had gone through, I really did not know if I was going to survive the industry because I kind of lost my identity. I was a team leader with my partner. We had I used to call them the kids because it was like a husband and wife, and then you have your kids. Just like a marriage, you have husband and wife, you have the kids. So I wasn't thinking about myself all the time. I was thinking about my kids, my team. And it was very hard for me to get to the place where I needed to be okay with the separation. But again, we were together for 4 years. Like, just like when I was a stay-at-home mom, like, who am I? Are people going to come to me anymore? Am I going to have business? Are people going to look at this as a failure? But honestly, it was the opposite. But if you talk to my manager, he will say I was concerned. Like I didn't know if I almost wanted to exit the industry just not to deal with everything that was going on. And I mean, thankfully, you know, I kind of picked myself up and with the help. I mean, listen, again, I have a great support system in my own home and the people that I'm surrounded by. And, you know, we're an amazing office. I mean, our office is a family. And I wouldn't have survived without Brian and Lena. And, you know, Lena having Cass help me and Courtney and you and, you know, and everybody else who just were, you know, I get text messages, Bryn Elliott, you know, I have people who call me to commend me on the things that I've done. And when it comes from people who really understand what's involved in this business, I don't want to say it's better than, you know, my husband or my mother or whoever saying like, oh, you did a great job, but you really understand what has gone into it. Dan O'Neill, you know, a phone call to say like, I needed to call you. Like, that's amazing. And I'm like, this kid has like and I don't mean to be offensive, but anybody under me I call him a kid, but you know, he's killing it in his team and he still picked up the phone to say, I needed to talk to you for a minute. Like, what? Who am I? I don't even know how I got here. This is true. But I really did not think that I was going to make it. I thought I was done in the business, and just because I felt broken. And when you do have a family and you have a husband and you know you have people who I'm like the go-to, like if you have a question about something, if you need, you know, whatever it is, people come to me all the time. So I felt like I wanted to like slither on the floor and just like hide, but I couldn't do it. Not because I didn't want to disappoint people who count on me. And, you know, like I said, thankfully it ended up being, you know, it's great. And I am friends with my partner and, you know, we talk probably we talk a lot. And, you know, did that happen overnight? No. But just like, and I'm not saying that I had to forgive him for anything, but just like if we go back to the beginning, when we talked about forgiveness, if you don't forgive and you carry this hatred or this animosity, you know, it just weighs you down. So for me, it's just easier to just be like, we're, you know, we respect. He was one of the first messages I got when the awards happened, and, you know, he saw what was happening. He was the first one to say, like, I'm proud of you. Like, keep doing what you're doing. You know, things happen.
Yeah.
You never, you know, you don't get into a marriage thinking it's going to end, and you don't get into a partnership thinking it's going to end. Even when Brian Jatta said to us, have an exit strategy. I was like, exit strategy? Like, what do you mean? Like, this is never going to end? We're going to be fine. And then it got to the end, and it was like, oh my God, like, we don't have an exit strategy, but we didn't need to. Like, we had a mutual respect. And you know, we still do. Yeah.
And Brian is that guy that you can go to with anything. Like, he is the best at what he does on the island.
The best.
And that is why I won't go anywhere, because I don't want to leave Brian.
I don't care commissions, who's, you know, 100%, 90%, this many percent. He's worth that percentage that you think you're giving up. You're not giving it up.
No, you're not.
Because what did I say to you the other day when we talked about, you know, leaving? If you're not doing business here, you're not doing business anywhere. So if whatever the 100% or 70% of zero is zero. So if you're not doing business, it doesn't matter what your commission split is. And listen, I have great relationships with owners of other companies, and it's not to say that I don't think they're great or these other companies are great. He just, for me at this time, and I agree with you, his knowledge of the business and what he has gone through. Listen, I had a foot out the door. I was going. I was done. I needed a change. And when I really thought about it, I'm like, this is not the time to change. This is the time where I need to get myself together and I need to figure it out. And he really, Lena, in the pandemic, Stephanie Kalanoff, she's, you know, we're not competition. And that's what I say to everybody in the industry. We're all in this together. Yes, are we competition if the two of us are sitting and we're going to sell somebody's house and now I'm selling myself and you're selling yourself? Yes, we are competition. But once we get out there, we are on the same team, especially when you get in a deal. I have a seller, you have a buyer, we have a common goal to sell a house. We should be able to work together to get to that common goal. That's the part of the industry that I don't enjoy. Facebook, you know, Instagram, everybody putting their stuff up, their awards. I'm number one, I'm number this, I'm number 7, I'm number... Really being number one, we don't really know. You're number one in your office. How much, what kind of an office? How much volume are you doing that you're number one? Did you do 10 deals and you're number one? That's wonderful. But I realized that a lot of real estate is a lot of smoke and mirrors. It can be very deceiving because of the way it can be presented. And I had a conversation with Stephanie, actually, and I said, you know what? Like, it used to bother me when I'd be like, oh, well, what? I wish I did this, or why can't I do that? And I realized they're only targeting their own audience.
Right.
Because my people aren't seeing what you did. You're not stealing my people from me. Maybe a Zillow buyer or somebody who, you know, a cold call or whatever. But, you know, I don't look down on anybody who tries to build their business by doing videos. I'm not a video person. This is out of my comfort zone. I'm super self-conscious. I don't like to be center of attention. You know, so I envy you that can get on a screen and walk through a listing like you are Vanna White. Or I'm like, you know, like I feel like that awkward, you know, high school kid. But I don't you know, I don't look down on anybody who's trying to build their business, and you can't take offense to what somebody else is doing. Just because I'm not doing it, that's my own fault. That's my own problem.
Yeah.
I could do it.
You can.
I just can't.
You can.
When we had the masks, I was like, okay. And then when the filters came out, I was like, oh, I can filter and do a video, but I mean, it's not me. Anyway, we all have our weaknesses and our strengths.
Oh, yeah.
I know where mine are, and I know where they aren't.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Do you think that if you knocked on doors and cold, how much more business you would do?
No, because I would be so awkward. They would be like, who are you? Like, no.
No?
No. But I will talk to anybody.
You will.
Anywhere. I'm just not going to knock on your door, and I'm not going to call you and say, please sell your house. I can't.
Yeah, it's not
and
natural.
I know that, you know, the big guy who I have so much respect for, Brian, yes. I'll tell you a funny story about that, him too. I was driving in the car with my little son, and I actually texted Brian and told him this, and he said something about, you know, being number 2, and I said, yeah, and he goes, who's number 1, Brian Karp? And I'm like, we're not even in the same company. And I go, but he probably is number 1 on the island. He goes, yeah, I see his face all over the place when he's driving his car. So then I text him, and I told him, and I told Thomas that I text Brian. He's like, you text him? I'm like, yes. He's like, you have his number? I'm like,
my God.
So I text Brian, I go, apparently you're like a celebrity, and I probably shouldn't have your phone number. But it was never, thankfully I never had to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is I always had enough business where I didn't feel like I had to get more. Like I managed what I had,
Mm-hmm.
and to go get more, I may have pushed myself over.
Mm-hmm.
I never want to slight anybody on the customer service.
Right.
And if you do too much and I don't have an admin or something like that, you know, you start cutting corners, and I'd rather have less business and give more than have more business and give less, because eventually, like, those people aren't going to want to work with me, and then there goes your residual income.
Right. Yeah, you either scale it to a point where you do have an admin, and then you really take it to the next level, or you control what you have. Right. You give your best to those, you know, whatever amount of people it is. And that's true. I mean, in terms of Brian, I love the guy. I went on that show to be his protege. I wanted to eat, breathe, sleep, everything that guy did. And he's a different species. He's different. When I moved into my house 13 years ago, he walked down the block. I just moved in. We're standing outside, and he was going to knock. I was outside, so we didn't have to knock on my door. But he approached me. Mm-hmm. And I find with Brian that his success has actually softened him, not the opposite. Where 100%. I really, because I remember dealing with him back then and being like, oh, like what? And now he's so I feel like much more approachable. He's so approachable. Yeah. And people don't think that. Like, going into that week, I didn't know who I was going to meet. Right. Like, because you think, like, you sell 200 homes, you must be like this type of guy. He's so sweet. He's so genuine. He really is like salt of the earth type of guy. I mean, I'm not sad that you lost, because then you would have left. I would have left, yeah. Oh. But everything happens for a reason. Yeah, it wasn't my time. Manny is an incredible human, and I'm super excited for what he does on Brian's team. And you know what? You never know what can happen. Never know. So yeah. It is what it is. It is what it is. That has definitely been my motto for 2020. It is what it is. Yeah. I don't have control over it. I just have to deal with, you know, you're dealt a hand, and that's it. You have to kind of deal with it. It's funny. I prepared all these questions, but we've just flowed so smoothly. I was so nervous about all the questions, and when I sat down, I'm like, oh, she could have sent those to me, so I could have been like prepared. Nope, no preparation. I just want to. If you could go back to when you first started and tell yourself one thing, what would it be? All a blur. It really is a blur. I can't believe it's been 8 years. One thing is, like, don't
don't sell yourself short. Like, you are capable of a lot more than I give myself credit for. 100%. And sometimes I do sit back and I'm like, wow, like that was some day, or that was some week, or this has been some life. Like, I don't like to use the word lucky. There is some kind of luck, I think. You know, I'm lucky that I didn't move to Bayport. Had I moved to Bayport, I wouldn't have met Brian. You know, there's just, you know, I say luck, but really it's a lot of hard work that has gone into, and still does every day. You know, I work on myself every day. And there are people out there who do not think I'm great and do not think that I'm genuine and wonderful, but that's life, you know.
Not everyone's gonna like you.
Nobody, right? And I can't worry about that.
No,
I have to focus on the people who do, because without them, I am not who I am. And that's, you know, that's 100%. I mean, that's in anything. You know, there are people out there who I love, or I talk to somebody else and I'm like, oh my God, and then vice versa. You know, people who I just don't, there's just something. It doesn't have to even be anything. It could just be something that just doesn't fit. That doesn't mean that they're bad, and it doesn't mean that I'm bad.
Right.
It just, you know, doesn't work. But yeah, I would probably tell myself, like, give yourself a little bit more credit. Like, you know, it's like this. It's never, even when I take a listing, I tell them, it's not like this. There's always going to be a problem. There is, as long as we remember that there is a solution to every problem, even if that solution is walking away, then that's the solution. But, you know, to hold on to it and you know, think about what could I have done different, doesn't matter. You can't change it. This second is gone as soon as we get to the next. You can't worry about what happened, you know, two minutes ago. Just keep, you know, moving forward and hoping that, you know, the next adventure is going to be a good one.
What is the next adventure?
I don't know. My next adventure is, you know, people joke around, you know, I'm 45 soon. People have kids at my age and they'll be like, oh, you know, and I'm like, no, like I'm probably, my son is going to kill me, but my next adventure, which I'm excited for, is like, I'm going to be a grandmother probably by the time I'm 50. Like, that is so exciting to me. And to be able to be at this place in our lives, you know, my husband's career, my career, where we can finally take a breath and enjoy things and, you know, do things that our 20-year-old selves couldn't do because we were, you know, raising kids and buying food and, you know, putting gas in our car, where now we can enjoy some of the luxuries. What I remember being that 20-year-old thinking, seeing a 40-something-year-old and being like, oh my God, like, I'll never get there. So to be here and be in this place, like, it's, you know, it's really, it's a great place to be. So that, I think, as far as career-wise goes, I'm here. I'm not doing anything else. I'm not becoming a doctor like I talked about. Like, I'm not doing any of that. The only other title that I want after this is grandma. And that's
full
going
circle.
to be full circle.
I love it.
Full circle. And that's it. I mean, you know, I'm thankful that I'm here. And, you know, hopefully it will just keep moving in a positive direction. And if it doesn't, we'll figure it out.
Day by day.
Day by day.
That's
minute
it.
by minute.
I want to leave off with something fun. If you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh my God, a superpower.
Yes.
Well, I think, you know, the sappy part of me wishes that I could create that time capsule.
Time machine?
Yep. To know where I'm going so that when I'm in it, I can enjoy it because I know that it's going to get easier. Things are going to change. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned,
So you want to travel time? Like that would be your superpower?
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, aside from, being able to see the future of what the lottery tickets are going to, the lotto numbers are going to be, but, there's a lot of things that I wish as a superhero I could do. But, yeah, to go back and just, see people and talk to people maybe who are not here anymore. Talk about, like, addicts, like, talking to them and saying, like, this is going to change the course of your life.
Right. Go
just,
back.
Yeah. And just being that 23-year-old young married mother and just know what the future holds so that you can kind of take a breath and enjoy the moment that you're in, because we don't do that often. And I find that even New York living, we really don't do that because the rat race is so, so intense. But it is what it is. This is where we are. This is where we chose to be.
Yeah, embrace it.
Embrace it. And that's it.
Yeah, no one has the opportunities like we do in New York.
No.
I mean, yeah, they say the grass is greener in Florida and Texas, but it's a different way of living.
Yep.
I love New York for what it is, and that's it.
That's it.
So I just want to say thank you. I know that this wasn't comfortable, but you did amazing, and you're natural, and just keep killing it. And
keep on keeping on.
You inspire so many people, and you don't realize that. Like, I've known you for a really long time, and I've always looked up to you. Even when I got my license, you were one of the only people I knew in real estate. And I was just like, wow. I was like so blown away by what you were doing.
Thanks.
And I remember reaching out, thinking about getting my license, and you were like, this is the school I went to, do it, and you encouraged me. So I appreciate that.
Good.
And
you're going to be great.
Thank you.
Really. Like, and when I saw you on that show, I'm like, she's going to be the winner. She's going to win. And I was a little upset about it.
I know. It's okay. But thank you.